My name is Thomas Bennett. I'm 62 years old, and until 3 days ago, I was the Director of Internal Audit at Omnicorp Global, a tech and consulting giant headquartered in Dallas, Texas. For 30 years, my life was this company. 30 years building my career, my reputation, ensuring everything operated within ethics and law. I was the guardian of corporate integrity. If you like stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are 2 new, unreleased stories here every day, and each one is more impactful than the last. To the new CEO, Victoria Hayes, I was just an expensive liability, an uncomfortable reminder of the rules she wanted to ignore. My meticulous and discreet nature was interpreted as lack of ambition. She completely underestimated my observational skills. It was on a cold Monday in March when I received the email. Thomas, I need to see you in my office at 3 p.m. Subject, Organizational Restructuring. Signed, Victoria Hayes, CEO. When I entered the room, Victoria was sitting behind her mahogany desk, accompanied by the Director of Operations, Mr. Albright. Both had that professional smile I knew all too well. Thomas, Victoria said with calculated coldness, your role is being eliminated immediately. We're moving towards a leaner, more agile structure. Your retirement package will be adjusted accordingly, effective today. 3 days. Just 3 days before my full retirement benefits would kick in. 30 years of dedication, and they fired me to save millions in benefits. I felt the injustice like a punch to the gut, but my voice came out calm, professional. I understand. I'll ensure a smooth handover. Inside, however, absolute certainty was forming. Their greed had just signed their own death warrant. Victoria was 45, ambitious and unscrupulous, focused only on short-term numbers. Albright, at 50, was her loyal accomplice purely out of self-interest. The justification was always the same: restructuring, cost efficiency. But I knew the truth. It was a tactic to eliminate an inconvenient witness to future irregularities. During the past 2 years, I had observed Victoria and her team systematically ignoring compliance alerts. Audit reports were being manipulated, funds were being diverted through suspicious contracts with shell companies. My auditor's instinct, forged over 3 decades of experience, was screaming fraud. But I wasn't just a passive observer. Over the years, I maintained an ultra-secure digital file, completely outside the company network. Every irregularity I witnessed was documented: compromising emails, altered financial reports, meeting minutes where my warnings were deliberately ignored, details of overpriced contracts. Each document was a legal time bomb. These weren't traps I had created, but irrefutable evidence of their lack of ethics. I had even sent encrypted copies to a secure server with specific instructions for release in case of my forced absence. And I had a powerful ally, Charles Sterling, a respected member of the board of directors, known for his unwavering integrity. He had discreetly asked me to keep an eye on certain suspicious transactions. Sterling would be the key to everything. Victoria's restructuring was actually an elaborate facade for a massive financial fraud scheme. She and Albright had created a network of shell companies to divert millions of dollars from Omnicorp's development funds. My termination was the final step to silence the main internal oversight and consolidate total control over financial operations. They had strategic accomplices in the upper ranks: CFO Marcus Webb, who manipulated quarterly reports, and HR Director Sandra Mills, who falsified hiring documents to justify non-existent payments. It was a meticulous scheme, orchestrated over months. But there was one detail they didn't know. I had already scheduled the annual external audit for the week following my departure. It was a routine procedure I had coordinated for a decade, but this time, it would be executed without my protective supervision. The Tuesday following my termination, I received an unexpected call. It was my former assistant, Jennifer, whispering nervously into the phone. "Mr. Bennett," she said, "something very strange is happening here. The Ernst & Young auditors arrived this morning and Victoria is in total panic." She asked to cancel the audit, but they said it had already been pre-approved by the board. I smiled silently. The irony was delicious. "And there's more," Jennifer continued. "They're asking for the compliance files from the past 2 years. Victoria and Albright are running around trying to organize the documents. For the next 3 days, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. First it was Victoria, her voice trembling with desperation. "Thomas, we need to talk. There might have been some misunderstandings about your termination. We'd like to offer you a consulting position, very well compensated, to help us through this transition period." My response was polite but firm. "Victoria, I appreciate the offer, but I've already made other plans." Then came Albright with a more threatening tone. "Thomas, I hope you understand the confidentiality agreements you signed. Any disclosure of internal company information could result in serious legal consequences." "Of course," I replied calmly. "I'm perfectly aware of my legal obligations." What they didn't know was that all the evidence I had collected was perfectly legal. As Director of Internal Audit, it was my responsibility to document irregularities. Every archived email, every copied report, every saved meeting minute, everything was within the scope of my official duties. On Thursday, I received a call from Charles Sterling. His voice sounded serious, but there was a note of satisfaction in it. "Thomas," he said, "I need you to come to my office tomorrow at 10 a.m. and bring all the documents you mentioned in our last conversation." Friday morning, I entered Sterling's office carrying a thick folder with printed copies of all the evidence. He was accompanied by 2 other board members, Patricia Morrison, former federal prosecutor, and Robert Chen, corporate governance specialist. Sterling opened the folder and began examining the documents. His eyes widened when he saw the emails between Victoria and the shell company vendors. Patricia Morrison analyzed the altered financial reports, shaking her head in disbelief. Robert Chen studied the overpriced contracts, taking detailed notes. "Thomas," Sterling said after an hour of analysis, "this is evidence of large-scale fraud. We estimate that at least $8 million was diverted over the past 18 months. Patricia Morrison added, "We have enough material for criminal prosecutions. I'll forward this to the FBI immediately." Meanwhile, at Omnicorp, chaos was setting in. The external audit had discovered massive discrepancies in financial reports. The auditors demanded access to internal systems, revealing unauthorized transfers and payments to non-existent companies. Victoria tried one last desperate move. She called an emergency meeting with all senior management, trying to blame my abrupt departure for the problems discovered in the audit. "Thomas Bennett left us in a very difficult position," she told the team. "His sudden departure created gaps in our compliance procedures. But Webb, the CFO, was too nervous to sustain the lie. During the meeting, he ended up revealing compromising details about the adjustments Victoria had asked him to make to the reports. Sandra Mills, realizing the ship was sinking, decided to save her own skin. She approached Patricia Morrison and handed over additional documents about the fake hires in exchange for immunity. It was exactly as I had predicted. Under pressure, Victoria's criminal alliance was crumbling, each one trying to save their own skin, revealing more evidence of the scheme. On the following Monday, Sterling called an emergency board meeting. Victoria and Albright were summoned to give explanations. I wasn't present, but Jennifer told me later it was a bloodbath. Sterling laid out the evidence on the table, one by one, compromising emails between Victoria and phantom vendors, unauthorized bank transfers signed by Albright, financial reports with handwritten alterations in Webb's own handwriting. "Victoria," Sterling said firmly, "can you explain this too? $1 million transfer to Apex Solutions, a company that doesn't physically exist?" Victoria tried to bluff. "That must be some kind of clerical error. I'll need to review these documents with my legal team." But Patricia Morrison had already verified everything with the FBI. "Victoria, Apex Solutions was registered in Delaware on the same day you authorized the first payment. The registered address is a P.O. box." Albright tried to blame me. Thomas Bennett had access to all these systems. He could have manipulated these records after his termination. Robert Chen smiled sarcastically. "Mr. Albright, these emails have timestamps from 6 months ago, and we have confirmation from external servers that they were sent from your corporate computers. Their defense collapsed completely. Victoria began sweating visibly. Albright turned red with anger but had no arguments. That's when Webb, who was being pressured by external auditors, made the fatal mistake. In desperation, he tried one last move. He called my cell phone on Tuesday night. "Thomas," he said with a trembling voice, "we need to talk. I know you have documents, but you don't understand the complete situation. Victoria forced me to make those alterations. She threatened my job, my family. I have proof of that." It was exactly what I expected. Webb was offering to deliver Victoria in exchange for clemency. "Marcus," I replied calmly, "I suggest you get a lawyer and cooperate with the competent authorities." But Webb was too desperate to think clearly. He sent an email to Victoria that same night, accidentally copying other executives, where he confessed his participation in the scheme and begged her to make a deal. Before everything exploded in the media. That email leaked to the press on Wednesday. The Dallas Morning News published a devastating story. Omnicorp CEO involved in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. The repercussion was immediate and brutal. Omnicorp's stock plummeted 35% in 2 days. Corporate clients began canceling contracts. The law firm representing the company sent a formal letter dissociating itself from the case. Victoria tried one last card. She called me personally on Thursday, crying on the phone. "Thomas, please," she begged. "I made mistakes, but it wasn't malicious. I was under pressure from investors to show growth. You can help minimize this. Explain that these were lapses in judgment, not intentional crimes." My response was measured. "Victoria, my conscience is clear. I always acted within ethics and law. But you can talk to Sterling, to the board. They respect you. A word from you can change everything," she continued desperately. "The only word I have for the board," I replied, "is the truth. And the truth has already been documented." On Friday, the FBI executed search and seizure warrants at Omnicorp offices and at the residences of Victoria, Albright, and Webb. Images of federal agents carrying boxes of documents appeared on all local newscasts. Sterling called me that afternoon. "Thomas, the board would like to meet with you on Monday. We have a proposal to make." During the weekend, more details of the scheme came to light. Investigative journalists discovered that Victoria had used part of the diverted money to buy a $1.2 million vacation home in Aspen, Colorado. Albright had financed a $180,000 Porsche 911 Turbo. The contrast was striking. They had fired me to save hundreds of thousands in retirement benefits while stealing millions to finance their personal luxuries. Sandra Mills, who had cooperated with authorities, revealed more sordid details. Victoria had created phantom employees in the HR system, with salaries that were deposited directly into accounts controlled by her. Some of these employees had names of movie characters: James Bond, Indiana Jones, Bruce Wayne. Their arrogance had no limits. They thought they were too smart to be discovered, too clever to be caught. But they underestimated the meticulous patience of a veteran auditor who had spent 3 decades observing, documenting, and protecting corporate integrity. On Monday morning, I walked toward the Omnicorp building for the first time since my forced termination. This time, however, I wasn't a discarded employee. I was the man who had saved the company from its own corrupt executives. The board meeting was surreal. The same executives who had approved my termination 3 weeks earlier now treated me like a hero. Sterling received me with a warm handshake and genuine smile. "Thomas," he said, "the board has made a unanimous decision. We'd like to offer you the position of Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer at Omnicorp, reporting directly to the board of directors." Patricia Morrison added, "The starting salary is $280,000 annually, plus performance bonuses, in addition to all the retirement benefits you would have received, retroactive to the original date." It was more money than I had ever earned in my entire career. The discarded liability was being promoted to the highest echelon of the company. "There's one condition," said Robert Chen. "We need you to lead the complete restructuring of our corporate governance processes. Your experience and especially your unwavering integrity are exactly what Omnicorp needs to recover. I accepted the position immediately. It wasn't just a personal victory. It was the opportunity to build something better, to ensure that what happened to me would never happen to any employee again. Meanwhile, Victoria, Albright, and Webb faced the consequences of their choices. The criminal trial began in October. The evidence I had meticulously collected was the backbone of the prosecution. Federal prosecutor David Richardson called me as the principal witness. During 3 days of testimony, I presented each document, each email, each irregularity I had observed over the past 2 years. My credibility was impeccable. 30 years of career without a single ethical blemish. Victoria tried a pathetic defense, claiming she was following industry practices, and that the irregularities were creative interpretations of regulations. But the numbers didn't lie. $8.7 million diverted in 18 months. Albright tried to place all blame on Victoria, claiming he was just an employee following orders. But the emails he had sent to phantom vendors proved his active participation in the scheme. Webb, who had partially cooperated with authorities, received the lightest sentence: 5 years in prison and restitution of $2.1 million. Victoria was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and full restitution of $6.6 million. Albright received 8 years. The irony was delicious. They had fired me to save a few $100,000 in retirement benefits, and now faced years in prison and complete financial ruin. But my true revenge wasn't seeing them in prison. It was building something positive with the opportunity their own criminal actions had provided me. During my first 2 years as Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer, I implemented a corporate governance system that became a model for other companies in the sector. I created secure channels for internal whistleblowing, mandatory ethical training programs, and a protection fund for employees who reported irregularities. I also established the Bennett Ethics Scholarship Fund, which offers scholarships for young professionals interested in specializing in corporate ethics. To date, we've funded the education of 47 students. Omnicorp didn't just recover from the scandal, it prospered under the new culture of integrity. Our corporate contracts increased 60% in 2 years, precisely because clients trusted our transparency. 3 years later, I received an unexpected letter from prison. It was from Victoria. She wrote, "Thomas, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say that you were right. My greed destroyed everything I had built. I hope you can forgive me someday." I didn't respond to the letter. There was nothing to forgive, because I never felt anger. I had simply done what was right, documented the truth, and allowed justice to follow its natural course. Today, at 67, I've officially retired from Omnicorp with a full pension and the respect of the entire industry. My name is synonymous with corporate integrity. Universities invite me to speak about business ethics. Victoria, Albright, and Webb got out of prison a few months ago. I heard Victoria works as a cashier at a supermarket in Ohio. Albright became an Uber driver. Webb got a job as an accountant at a small firm, earning a third of what he used to make. They thought I was the past, an obsolete obstacle to their ambitious plans. But they discovered, in the hardest way possible, that I was the future. A future built on honesty, patience, and the unwavering conviction that truth always prevails. The lesson I learned from all this is simple. True professional security doesn't lie in hiding the truth, but in revealing it. Integrity may seem like a disadvantage in the short term, but in the long run, it always proves to be the most powerful force in the corporate world. And sometimes, when you're patient enough, the sweetest revenge is simply letting people reap exactly what they sowed. If you enjoyed this story, like, share, and leave your comment telling us what you thought. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive notifications of new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.